Hey everyone, welcome to Judging for the Win. I'm Dave, and this is my daily ruling. Today's question was suggested by a viewer. Thanks to Felix for this one. Amy equips Colossus hammer to Obstinate Gargoyle. Does Obstinate Gargoyle have flying? So there's two continuous effects happening in this question, and the answer depends on which one applies first. Of course, the first things everybody is probably thinking about when it comes to continuous effects is layers, but that isn't going to help us here because effects that make a permanent lose abilities apply in the same layer as effects that make them gain abilities, which I guess makes sense, but like I said, not particularly helpful. So let's move on. The next thing on some of your minds might be dependencies. Now, usually I would just say there's no dependency here and link to my video where I talked all about dependencies for more information, but people always tend to voice some confusion in the comments whenever I do so. So today, let's actually go through this point with a little bit more rigor. Dependencies are important for this question because if a dependency exists between two continuous effects, that sets the order that they apply in. If you can't read all that text, don't worry, I'll go through it all point by point. So they definitely do apply in the same layer like we said before, and both of them are not characteristic defining abilities, so we're good there. Finally, there's this last criterion. Neither of these effects changes the text or existence of the other effect, nor do they change which object is affected. In this case, that's the Obstinate Gargoyle. But this third one is the one that might make some people think that maybe there is a dependency. Does applying one of these effects first change what the other effect does to Obstinate Gargoyle? And again, the answer is no. Obstinate Gargoyle's effect always makes it want to gain flying. Colossus Hammer's effect always makes it want to lose flying. The order that they apply in might change the final outcome, or how much stuff each effect has to do when it does apply, but it doesn't change what either effect is actually doing. So with that, we can say there is no dependency between these two effects, and thus we move on to the third easy step, timestamps. Whichever of these effects has a later timestamp will apply last and therefore win. Now, the important rule is that continuous effects that come from a static ability of a permanent, which both of these are, have the same timestamp as the permanent that they're on. Also, the Colossus Hammer, like all equipment, gets a new timestamp at the time it becomes attached to a new creature. So putting these together, we can say that the Colossus Hammer's timestamp is after the Obstinate Gargoyle's, and therefore the Gargoyle does not have flying. This can be a little bit confusing because sometimes people think that there should be a similar rule for abilities like Obstinate Gargoyles, where it gets a new timestamp at the time when it starts doing something. But per the CR, this is not the case. The timestamp for this ability is the time when Obstinate Gargoyle entered the battlefield, not when it became modified. To close out, let's maybe think about some ways that you could get a Colossus Hammer equipped to something and the equipped creature really would end up with flying. I think the standard way to do it would be with something like this Inkmoth Nexus. If you animate it, and then equip the Colossus Hammer, and then animate it again, that would create a second gains flying continuous effect with a later timestamp than the losing flying effect from Colossus Hammer. But I already made a whole video about that, so today let's try for something different. If you manifest, or cloak, an Obstinate Gargoyle, and then equip a Colossus Hammer to it, and then turn it face up, that will also do the trick. The reason is that anytime a permanent turns face up or face down, that causes that permanent to get a new timestamp. Therefore, the ability that makes Obstinate Gargoyle gain flying will have a later timestamp than the Colossus Hammers, as required. Note that this trick wouldn't work if we were talking about a creature or even a vehicle that just had the flying ability normally. With continuous effects, you always start with the base characteristics that are printed on the card. Timestamps are irrelevant if you have the flying ability normally and you aren't gaining it via a continuous effect. And that's all I have for you today. How did you do? Join me again next time for another daily ruling. Until then, I hope you have a great day.